everyone, it's Morgan and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about and watching, actually, my first experiences with henna. This henna that I was using was a little, I want to say plastic tube. It felt like a little thing of icing, honestly. If you ever iced a cupcake right from a bag, because that's honestly what it felt like. And every time that you pressed on the henna, more henna would come out of the tip, obviously, but there would be less and less pressure inside that little plastic bag tube thing. So the more you use this henna, the harder it gets to use it, actually. And that's going to come up a little bit later in the video, because you can see that as I'm getting towards the end, it just gets a little sloppier because it gets harder to control. So, if you haven't figured it out yet, my friend had asked me to henna bones on her hand, laying right on top of her own bones. And it was actually a little bit trickier than expected, because I was using a reference picture of someone else's henna, and in the reference, the person who had the henna on their hand had very long, lanky fingers, and even their hand was a lot longer than my friend's, and she even said that she had small hands. So what I had to do was transfer those proportions onto her hands and try to make the bones still line up while, making it look right, because I don't know what the bones in your hand look like just off of memory. I don't know about you guys, but using henna is also a little bit difficult because it's very similar to ink. Once you put it down, it's there. It's wet when you put it down, so if you try to get rid of it, it's just going to smear, and then the smear is not going to come off, and it's a whole nightmare. So just trust me, once you lay down some henna, it's staying there. So that's what made it difficult, because it's kind of like, no eraser, every mistake stays there. So you got to be really careful right from the beginning, because if I had messed up in the beginning, I could have thrown the whole hand off proportion, and I honestly would have felt really bad for getting all that mess all over her hand. So for anyone who's never had a henna before or never done anything with henna, whatever, this is the type of henna where you put it on wet, and like I said, it acts just like ink. It's this black little kind of thick, I don't even know how to describe it, substance that just comes out of this tube. It kind of is like icing, like I was talking about before, but it's usually black. You can get it in different colors, and it'll dry right on your hand, and then after maybe 30-40 minutes, you can pick it off completely, and it's just these little flakes that come off of it. And then what you're left with is stuff that looks like a tattoo. It looks like someone just took a marker to your skin. But the thing about henna is it's usually organic, and it's not bad for your skin. It's safe to use it. Alright, so since we're kind of talking about henna like it's ink, we're just going to pretend here for a moment. Now we're going to talk about the drawing. I was kind of using a weird process while I was doing this, because I was a little confused. I was kind of new to this thing of transferring your reference onto someone's skin, because it's different than just drawing the henna on a piece of paper, because now you're working with a 3D canvas. I actually have to work with the curves of her finger, and I have to think about where her skin overlaps and where the henna's not gonna lay right. You gotta think about these little things that you don't usually think about, because you're usually drawing on a piece of paper, and now I'm drawing on my friend's hand. I would start by drawing a cluster of these sections of bone each time. Those little shapes I keep drawing. And then I would shade a couple of them at a time. And by shading, I would just put a little bit of henna in one spot and then kind of drag it over to another and touch it down to make a little line. Once you start using henna, you kind of get the hang of it easily, because you understand, it's so tricky to explain. You understand, the properties of the henna, So, for example, it's not possible to draw a straight line. You gotta think about the way the henna is going to behave, because it's difficult to lay down and very, very difficult to put a straight line, let me tell you that. So this drawing, I'm going to call it, this drawing on her hand ended up being a little bit messy, because I couldn't always predict the way the henna was going to squeeze out of the tube. Sometimes, my hand, squeezed a little bit too hard in places, and it would form a little kind of pool of henna. You have to keep in mind that it is still thick, so it kind of just layers on top of itself and then just gets thicker and thicker. Kind of like nail polish, where the more layers you put on, the longer it's going to take to dry. So every time I made a big glop of henna on her hand, I was like, oh shoot, that's going to take forever to dry. But as I kept doing it, I started to get the hang of it a lot more, especially because I was kind of repeating the same thing on each finger. You have 4 fingers that look pretty similar with your bones, and then your thumb's just the same thing but smaller. So as I was getting across her fingers, I was becoming more comfortable with it, and I'm pretty sure that I did the last few fingers a lot quicker because I had a lot more confidence now that I had already done a few fingers. I was like, all right, 1 more, no big deal, 2 more, perfectly fine. And actually, this whole drawing on her hand didn't take that long to do. I expected it to take so much longer than it did, but it took under like, I want to say under 30 minutes, maybe it was like 25 minutes it took me to do this. But I felt bad because we were both kneeling on the floor and she had her hand on my chair, but it's all good, it's all good. But overall, I had a really fun time using the henna, and I'm not gonna lie, I experimented on myself quite a bit. And I actually ordered 4 more because I liked it so much. Because if you couldn't tell, at the end of the video, it was getting pretty hard to use. I had to like crumple it over a little more and try to tape it down. So I ordered 4 more, but they're not coming for like a month. So if we're gonna have any more of these henna videos, expect them later when I get more henna. And good news is my friend ended up loving the way it looked, and everyone else did too, actually. It was all in all, it was a complete success. I really loved it, and she was really patient, and it dried perfectly and looked great in the end. So let me know if you guys found this interesting. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.